Thank you, Giacomo, for your amazing presentation. Now I leave the floor to Simone.
Okay, so I would ask Sofia and Annaelena to share their screen, and I will introduce them in the meantime. So Sofia just finished her Master of Science at Bocconi in Economics and Management of Government and International Organization, and Annaelena also finished the Master at Bocconi and is now a PhD at the University in Economics at the University of Siena. And so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Simone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today. I am Sofia, and together with Annaelena, she'll intervene later. We are going to present our research, which is called Life Debts and Modern Slavery, and which deals with the trafficked Nigerian women here in Italy. I want to thank Fondazione Franceschi because thanks to their scholarship, we had this amazing opportunity of interviewing Nigerian women here in Italy. And our research is quite extensive. Today, for the sake of time, we will just briefly touch upon some of the main results that we have obtained. And we would also like to focus on the methodology that we followed. So before starting with our main objective, let's just briefly focus on the context that we observed and from which we started. Human trafficking is unfortunately a still very present phenomenon today, and it can be considered a form of modern slavery in the sense that the people that are trafficked are treated as commodities. So it is fundamentally a violation of human rights, which stems from deep socioeconomic inequalities, both within countries and across countries. So in our case, in the country of Nigeria, and then across Nigeria and Italy, of course. Trafficked women put their lives in the hands of the traffickers because they see no other option. So sometimes they might understand what will come later, but still they decide to face this journey just because they do not see any other opportunity for their future. In Italy, we see that this is reflected in the number of particularly women that arrived in the last years with an uprising trend, especially from Nigeria. And this is then reflected on the number of assisted victims of human trafficking, which in 2017, for example, were over 1,000, and of these 1,000, more than 85% were women. Given this context, we had three objectives. First of all, we wanted to collect information on rescued Nigerian women here in Italy and create an original dataset, a novel dataset that was not present at the time of our research. Then we split the research. We're actually presenting two theses today. Annaelena focused on the migration decisions of the women and their socioeconomic background, while I focused on the anti-trafficking programs here in Italy and the services that they offer to the women once they enter our integration program. Given this objective, our first task was to travel to 7 different anti-trafficking associations here in Italy. And the association were chosen together with Forum Disuguaglianza e Diversità, in particular in the person of Andrea Morgnoli, which helped us a great lot. And we visited them last year from July to September. And the women that we interviewed were chosen with a convenient sampling technique. We couldn't just randomly pick the women, although it might have been optimal for our research because of very obvious ethical concerns. The women had already entered our integration program, but every woman was at different stage of their path to reintegration and to dealing with the traumas that they had experienced during the journey and during the time they spent in Italy under bondage. So the association actually chose the women for us that were deemed ready to face our questionnaire and at the same time that were willing to share their experience with us. The interviews were held in English, lasted from 20 to 40 minutes, and were held in the presence of me, Annaelena, and just the other girl. And they were of course, we also gave them the possibility to skip any questions and or to stop the questionnaire altogether, again, even at the expense of our research, because ethical concerns were, of course, paramount to us. Also, anonymity was ensured.
Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay. So the questionnaire includes 76 questions covering an extensive area of inquiry, from the biographic information on the women, their education, cultural values, and information on the family background, to the decision to leave Nigeria and the features of the agreement with the traffickers, up to the first reception in Italy and the recovery path with the association, and access to job opportunities and healthcare facilities. The final sample is composed by 38 women, mostly coming from states located in the southern part of Nigeria. And as the main reports have previously highlighted, the victims of trafficking are usually very young. Indeed, 53% of the girls in our sample were 19 or younger when just arrived. In order to understand their economic background, we employed the Poverty Scorecard, which is a tool that uses 10 low-cost indicators from Nigeria's 2012 General Household Panel Survey to estimate the likelihood that a household has a per capita consumption below the national poverty line. And for example, we can see that women coming from the cities have a significant lower probability of being under the national poverty line compared to those coming from the villages. And looking at their educational background, around 18% of them did not study at all, and those who studied report the average number of around 9 years of education, which is consistent with the national average. Looking at the reasons pushing the women into this risky migration project, the most mentioned are the economic difficulties of the family and the job search. Other reasons emerged beyond those fixed alternatives are the desire of keeping studying or escaping from bad situations at home. For example, parents' decision to make the girl endure genital mutilation or early marriages, and the desire of helping the family. Many girls express this strong feeling of responsibility towards their family, often because they are the firstborn or their parents' health state was poor. And this caring attitude is confirmed by findings concerning culture, which have been observed through questions taken from the World Value Surveys. Indeed, family ties appear to be very strong in the sample, and the autonomy index shows that most of the women consider as important values in life obedience and religious faith more than independence and determination. Moving on to the process of recruitment, we observed that the recruiters lured most of the interviewees into migration by promising them higher remunerated job opportunities at destination, but also educational opportunities. And primarily, the recruiters are friends or neighbors in Nigeria, but even in some cases, parents and other relatives. In the attempt to investigate the awareness of the women regarding this in-depth migration project they embarked on, we asked them if they knew what was ahead of them before leaving and which information they received concerning several features of the migration project. For example, the existence of a debt, the length of the journey, the means of travel, and so on. At a glance, the figure on the right reveals that the share of women informed about the conditions of this migration project is lower than or equal to 50% for almost all the features bar the country of destination. And for what concerns the debt, around half of the women in the sample knew that they had to repay a debt once arrived, but the amount, the currency, were not always clearly specified. At destination, the range of the actual debt goes from 18,000 euros to 40,000 euros. Finally, it seems relevant to mention that 71% of the women have taken the Juju Vote, which is a magical ritual during which the women swear oaths in order to ensure compliance with the agreement, and so repaying the debt, respecting the traffickers, never reporting to the police. And it is considered a solemn oath, and women strongly believe that if they do not repay the debt, terrible things like madness, or illness, or deaths will befall them and their families. Lastly, in the attempt to investigate the bargaining power of the women in the decision-making process, it has been asked to assess the level of influence exerted on the decision by the various actors involved. And on the basis of this, the decision has been classified as autonomous when the woman is willing to leave but her family is not, shared when both the woman and her family are willing to enter the sponsored migration agreement, and imposed when the woman is not willing to leave but her family or other subjects are. And it has been run a multinomial logistic regression in order to study the relationship between the nominal outcome variable type of decision and various independent variables regarding the women, her family, and her cultural values. And what emerges that as the women grow up, the probability of suffering an imposed decision compared to making an autonomous one decreases, holding constant the level of education and poverty likelihood. And education has a decisive role too. Indeed, having studied lowers the probability of suffering an imposed decision.
Annaelena, you have 3 minutes.
What?
You still have 3 minutes.
Ah, okay.
Okay, I'll take back the presentation for a moment. Okay, so to conclude, I'll just briefly share some of my results. As I said in the beginning, I mainly focused on association services and their integration programs here in Italy. This slide just summarizes the main services that we tried to assess during the research, which is still under development. We're still trying to perfect the results that we obtained. Today, I'll just like to highlight a couple of results and examples of our research. I'll start with the channels through which the associations were able to find the girls. On average, our sample had spent 2 years in Italy before entering our integration program. And the girls do not escape their captors because, as Annaelena was saying, there are 2 very important components. On one hand, the girls feel like they have to repay the debt that they owe to the traffickers, although illegal. And on the other hand, the Juju swears really puts up psychological holds on them and on their family as well, that sometimes ask them to stay with the captors in order to avoid the bad consequences of the Juju swear. The associations helps the girls leaving their captors in 2 ways: an indirect way, by sharing information with the migrant community and spreading the words about their integration programs. And we see that this is more effective when the girls had passed 2 or 3 years under the streets before being found. The longer the girls had stayed on the street, the more important the direct channel became. Meaning we refer to the direct channel, meaning the street unit activities performed by the association and the operators, which directly go on the streets and talk with the girls in order to slowly persuade them to leave their captors and to enter our integration program. While in the indirect way, the girls in most of the cases self-reported to the association and were willing to enter our integration path by themselves. A second example is provided by the services regarding job finding opportunities. In the table, we summarized the main job that the women that we interviewed were doing at the time of the interviews. Unfortunately, most of them had not found a job yet. But what we observed was that the girls that actually had found a job were also the ones that reported a better health and a better knowledge of the Italian language. This is very relevant because we statistically proved that both these aspects were increased by the other services offered by the association. So staying longer in the association, taking advantage of their courses and their information, increased the health of the women and their knowledge of the Italian language. So again, the second examples provide an example on how the association slowly gives to the women the tools to have a better life here in Italy. As I said, this was a brief presentation of our research, which we are still developing now. And we thank you very much for your attention. We thank Fondazione Franceschi, because without their scholarship, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet the women, which of course have our greatest gratitude for being willing to share their past with us and their experience. So thank you very much. I hope we still have time for some questions if you want.
Thank you, Sofia, and thank you, Annaelena. This is a really fascinating work. We already have one question from a member of the network. Juan, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Hi, great work, Sofia and Annaelena. I thought it is very inspiring to see what you're doing, and also very inspiring to see what the associations are doing. What I was wondering here is if whenever we apply your research to the role of the associations and what kind of skills the people working in the associations have, what would be your advice of which skills these people need to have in order to be able to help this group of women better? Because at the end, the associations are doing such a great work, as you rightly pointed, but what are they lacking? What are the skills that they still need to develop to be able to help these women migrants in a better way?
Well, this is a great question. I think what the women that we interviewed were still showing some difficulties in was accepting the time that is needed to completely recover and have a chance here in Italy. This is completely understandable in the sense that those are very young women. They had mine and Annaelena age on average. And of course, they came to Italy having these big dreams about their future. And once they come here, they had to face this very harsh reality. So sometimes they did not really understand why were they not able to enter society as soon as they thought they were ready, while they still had to go through psychological counseling and also to specific courses to train in Italian and also in like general job trainings. So I think one aspect that can be improved, that we need to focus on, is helping them understand what is going on and why it is so difficult to enter the Italian society and in general a society wherever they'd like to go. I don't know if Annaelena has something to add.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we still have 1 minute, so I will add one question. That is, so first of all, really great work. It's really impressive to see the results of what you did. So my question was, you emphasized the aspect of coercion that the brokers and the people that these women met in Italy exerted on them, but we know that sometimes the relationship with the brokers, such as Madame, could be also one that is instrumental. No, so these people could also be seen as someone that helped you in managing a difficult situation, poverty, and all the constraints that we know they are exposed to. So I was wondering if you also found something along those lines, and if not, I wonder if this could not be due to the fact that you interviewed these people while they were already in a program, right? So already after taking a decision to exit from sex work and everything.
Okay, maybe I could answer. I think that the girl that we interviewed did not have this kind of experience with their madame. The reason maybe it's that they exit this situation, but some of them told us that they were actually very close friends or also relatives, but the trust then disappeared after all. I don't know what to say. The bondage then broke, and also the trust with it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.